Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of the Dreams Are Real podcast. I'm Dan McPherson, and my job and the purpose of this podcast is to share inspirational stories and powerful tools that make it easier to follow your dreams. Accomplishing dreams alone isn't easy. If you're ready to speed things up for you or your team, check out leadersmustlead.com or email dmcpherson@leadersmustlead.com for more information about our one-on-one and group coaching programs, upcoming live events, or to book Dan as a speaker. Our guest today is Lucas Rubix. Lucas is a mindset, marketing, and performance coach, as well as the creator of the Coach's Corner and host of the popular Coach's Corner podcast. Intense, outspoken, no excuses, and authentic are words often used to describe Lucas, and they seem to fit quite well. After surviving a childhood that instilled him with a tremendous work ethic, Lucas has leveraged these traits to overcome obstacles and succeed in many areas of life. As you'll hear, he puts it all on the line every single day, and when he said he was open to discuss anything, he absolutely meant it. During our conversation, we race across the ground at lightning speed, which I'm pretty sure is the only speed at which Lucas moves. Topics range from the craziness of working on an oil rig to how he moved from a super dark emotional state to build a small coaching business and then springboarded his personal development into an internationally respected leader and coach of coaches, to why he recently imagined himself peeing his pants and fainting on stage at a speaking event, and so much more. As you can tell, when talking with Lucas, there is never a dull moment. For more info about Lucas Rubix, visit lucasrubix.com, and to learn more about our podcast and for a bunch of behind-the-scenes info, search for the Dreams Are Real podcast group on Facebook and join our growing community. And now, here's my conversation with Lucas Rubix. Welcome to the Dreams Are Real podcast, where we aim to ignite the fire that allows you to unleash your greatest potential. I'm your host, Dan McPherson, and I'm on a mission to help you own your story on the way to building your ideal life. The first step toward achieving your dreams is to overcome the momentum of zero. Take a step and let that motion dispel the emotions of fear, worry, or self-doubt. No matter where you are in your life or your career, only you can make that choice. The good news, you've got this. Why? Because dreams are real. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Dreams Are Real podcast. I'm your host, Dan McPherson, and I am here with Lucas Rubix. Lucas is a mindset, marketing, and performance coach. He is all over the internet, sharing wonderful pearls of wisdom and lots of energy that I'm confident you're going to hear today, hoping to dig deeper into the story that is Lucas and find out a little bit about you. Welcome, Lucas.
Thanks, Dan. It's awesome.
Man.
I'm just trying to, I could talk a lot, so I'm just trying to stay quiet here and just listen to what you got to say. I'm ready to go.
Well, now we're ready to listen to what you've got to say. And I shared at the beginning there that you are a coach of all different types: mindset, marketing, performance. I think we could probably include transformation, maybe juggling. I don't know. I think you do a lot of different stuff. How do you respond when other people ask what you do?
Yeah, so our main focus right now is with coaches. So a lot of coaches are amazing at what they do. They're amazing coaches, and they have such a passion and such a big heart and such a drive to serve more people and to share their gift and to share their message, but they struggle to get clients. So all of our programs right now, and like everything we absolutely do, most of the content we produce is around the marketing and around the campaigns and around the psychology of getting a client. But within that lies a massive, strategy is one thing, but the actual mindset and the actual habits and the actual internal part of the whole game is equally important. So we focus on in really two aspects of it. We can teach it. Here's the strategy. Here's how to do it. Here's exactly how to get 20 clients next week. But let's make sure we're the person internally that can handle that kind of flow and can handle the attention that comes with it. So we kind of shift between two worlds. But if clients is your thing, getting more clients, then that's what we do.
Then you're the group for that. Now, you say we. What does your company look like right now?
Yeah, so right now, Sarah, who you're probably going to see a lot more of, she's been full-time with us for a year. She used to be a client way back in the day, a one-on-one client. and she's an ex-pro athlete, and just like her mindset and her, I have only good things to say about her. And she's been getting more and more on the front line. So she's working with a lot of our clients. She's a beast. So fundamentally, it's two. We had a third person, didn't fully work out. So we're kind of expanding into a third person, but we're just really small. We move fast, we move quick, and we're just all about creating impact. And it's amazing with automation, with technology, and with the tools available to you, that what used to take 10 people to run, you can do it with 2. Like, it's incredible the scale you can reach just with 2 or 3 people. So
yeah, I've been finding that as well. So many different pieces of software, different practical tools, the automations, it's unbelievable and only escalating.
it's crazy. A lot of people are complaining about it, and I get it, like jobs and this and that, but I mean, I'm all about the stoic philosophies, but just like intense realism. Like, look at what's real, and even if you want it different, it's not changing, so why focus on it? And the future is robotics, technology, automation, and if you don't get ahead of that curve, you will lose your job. So I whether I like it or don't like the idea of automation and technology and replacing people with machines is irrelevant, because it's what's happening. So I jumped on it, and I definitely leverage it heavily.
If it's there and it's going to happen, make the most of it for sure. You mentioned you like Stoic philosophy, and I guess the first question related to that is do you have any particular philosophers that you like more than others, or is it more the philosophy in general?
It's the whole philosophy in general. We can get into it a little bit later if you like. I don't want to just talk about me or my story, but early on, the philosophic sort of way, especially the work like Marcus Aurelius was sort of my first entry, in his letters was my first gateway into, well, I grew up Catholic. And when I was 20, 21, and I let go of that, I don't want to make this religious, that's not important, but when I let go of those beliefs, I was super lost, and I was trying to find some new code or some sort of everything I believed in, I no longer believe in a way. And when I stumbled across those philosophies, it really resonated with me and got me out of some pretty dark places. So since then, I've been a really big fan of that, and everything from modern day philosophers like Robert Greene, who's one of my biggest mentors or heroes from afar. He embraces a lot of that kind of stoic philosophy.
How old were you for that at that transition?
Well, it was at the tail end of high school, and then after high school, after high school, I started really, because it was so, I only knew the world in one way, and we were immigrants, so we didn't have a huge social circle. So I just knew one way of viewing the world, and it never really resonated with me. I have absolutely nothing against. I have been on so many different Catholic and Christian and religious shows, and I have so much respect for it. But just for me, it didn't resonate. And so I went on a big journey of like Eastern philosophies, Western, all these different religions, and I was just studying of like what is real. And when I realized they all share the same central message, I started sort of having a better understanding of a bigger world than I understood. And then when I stumbled across those Stoic philosophies, I was just on the tail end of my oil rig career, and I was maybe 23, and I was going through some pretty deep depression. And there's more to this story, but basically that really got me out of that dark place and got me started on the path of entrepreneurship. So I have those philosophies to kind of thank for creating who I am, whatever that means today.
Right? Whatever you have become, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Earlier than high school, you mentioned you're an immigrant. Where were you as a kid? What was your life like as a kid?
Yeah, so I just read this awesome thing on Netflix about how the mind works, and how like 60 or 70% of what we think are memories are actually not. So they were doing this study of people who witnessed 9/11, and there was this one girl who was like, I was sitting at my school window looking out when I saw the towers fall, and later on she was telling the story to the mom, and when they started looking at the science of it, the school where she was didn't face the Twin Towers. So everything she saw on TV later on, like after 10 years, your memories get mixed up.
Right. So
it's really funny because there's some things that I think were true, and when I talk to my family about it, they're like, I don't think it is. And so it's really interesting. I'm all on this weird thing about men. But from how I remember things, and I don't remember much of my childhood, but my parents lived in Poland. They, because of communism and a few things going on in the country, they I believe they were pregnant with me. So they escaped from the country and they were just refugees in Italy. That's where they had me. I was born in Rome, a little island. There's a little hospital and a school on that island in the middle of Rome. And when they had me, the Canadian government sponsored them to come to Canada. They came to Kamloops. I'm just a little kid at the time. And I watched my parents, no language, no money, the complete underdogs, create something truly amazing. And they retired before they were 50. And they came to the country when they were around 28. So I've never seen two people who worked harder.
What did they do?
They had a few businesses. My dad started, I'm so proud of my dad, but he started at 7-Eleven. They got a job placement at 7-Eleven night shifts so he could learn the language. So he was just talking to customers, learning the language. And because of night shifts in the back of the room, I believe he was doing some woodworking. So he was selling some extra things. So he was getting paid per hour and then making things out of wood to sell or something like that. And then he got a job, I believe, at Canadian Tire as a mechanic. He was always good with tools. And then he moved into setting up trailers, so skirtings, like setting up mobile homes. And after that, I believe that paid him well. He took that money and started his first business, which was spraying the bed liners of pickup trucks. Rhino linings, it was called, in Kamloops. He had a big warehouse. He was just working alone. And I was a kid. I remember going to work with him all the time and just hanging out in the little waiting area. So he'd work 12, 14 hours. I'd be hanging out in the waiting area. My mom would do the bookkeeping. And then I believe they got a contract with a dealership. So they were doing all the Dodge trucks. He got rid of that after that, took the money, started a driving school, motorcycle school, and then he kind of expanded from there. So mostly around cars.
Around cars, but very different aspects of it. As a kid, you sitting in that room, in that waiting area for 12 to 14 hours, like what went through your mind?
I don't remember. I think I know only this from photos because I've seen photos. But I know without a doubt that, they may not have given me much monetary gifts or things, but what trumps that is like watching my dad's mentality, his work ethic. Never complain. I never saw my dad complain ever, even once. So it's incredible. Like I think of every time I'm starting to get softer, I'm like, I don't know, like whatever, because luxury will destroy you. I've learned that. That's a very stoic philosophy too, is I will on purpose get uncomfortable as often as I can, or go hang out in the slummiest part of the city and hang out with heroin addicts just to remember that what I have right here and this luxury that you get to live in is so it's not real, and it's so easy
fleeting, right? It's temporary.
So easy to get stuck in it. But what he taught me was all that. He never complained. He never let it get to his head. The good times, he was the same. The bad times, he was the same. And so I have them to, thank for absolutely everything. Because when I left home, I was like, well, I better be the hardest worker in the room. And so I went on the oil rigs to make my first chunk of change so I could turn it into something.
Sounds like your earliest stoic philosophy might have come from your parents a little bit.
Yeah, he was, I would say he embodied that, whether he knew it or not. He definitely embodied a lot of it, like intense realism and, a lot of it. I think a lot of people think stoic is no emotion. And I think my dad had a really hard time not showing emotion. So I had to do a lot of work in my early, even late 20s to even start expressing myself in a healthy way, because I was definitely one bottled up 20-year-old. But once I started doing that, it's like the pressure from the shoulders and the chest and this insane internal rage and hatred for the world just vanished when I was able to express myself. And now I get to express myself through the content, and what I do every day is almost therapeutic for me as well.
You mentioned that you had to learn to express yourself in a healthy way. Did you go down some paths with unhealthy ways?
Sure.
I know that I have, and so many others have that we've had on the podcast.
Big time. Everything from, I thought it's normal, but I'm really into cars. I still am, in motorcycles, but I used to, it was just insane. Now that I think about it, but I'm full speed downtown in a 50-kilometer-hour zone, going 160, 180. I bought this Audi one time with a friend, and just I didn't know it, but I was trying to express something through extremely reckless behavior. I'd pop up on sidewalks. People, it's from a movie, but it's real. If you talk to some of my buddies, they're like you were insane. Fights, later on prescription drugs for sure. I had a phase of that. And that led me down that path and learning to express myself, just angry, like super, super angry human being till about 25, 26. And now I'm still very aggressive, but I use the anger for positive. I'm naturally aggressive, and I love that part about me, but it's not angry anymore. It's just my energy.
You funnel it for good now.
Yeah, for sure.
One last question about when you were a kid, there's a lot that you don't remember. Do you remember if you had any dreams at all? If you looked forward and thought, man, I'd like to do this, or I'd like to be this, even back then?
I did. I was always so funny because I was fairly shy, fairly internal. We were very different in a way. Like I remember one time, and I freaking apologized to my mom as often as I can about this, but we lived in a trailer park. And my parents moved me, I believe, because maybe I was getting in trouble. I don't know, but they moved me to a private school, but they couldn't afford the private school. So my mom drove the buses for the private school. And in return, they gave me a seat in the school. Private school, generally, there's people with a little bit more wealth, and kids don't understand like that. So I remember she was like, you never invite your friends over. And I'm like, they all have mansions and we live in a trailer. And I remember her just bawling, like they worked so hard. I mean, I was just like, man, I still feel bad about that. And so I remember being a little bit different or feeling different. And a lot of people can relate with that at some capacity, but I felt extremely different, super distant. Like I was seeing the world through my eyes and everything was just apart. And I still can fall into this habit of just being the outcast or the underdog. But I always wanted to be a famous actor. I watched movies. I'd always be like I could recite movies. I'd watch 3-4 movies a night sometimes. Like I was just obsessed with movies and acting. So I did pursue acting for 3-4 years in Vancouver and Hollywood. Went to acting school, method acting, all that fun stuff, which is an amazing skill set now that I do videos and I do content. Like it plays hand in hand. But I always wanted to be someone of influence and just someone who performed, I guess, in a way.
Right. Someone who performed and people watched and looked at. Did you have a favorite actor or actress during that time that you were emulating?
Same one to this day. I grew my hair out. I had a red bandana in my hair half the time. It was ridiculous. But Stallone, I loved his philosophy. I loved his movies. And I still haven't watched the new Rambo. Everyone says it's horrible, but I know it's going to be the best thing ever, even if it is bad. I just really respect the guy and that underdog mentality. So I used to watch Rocky on repeat. And so I'm sure just even watching those movies over and over just instilled this like anything is possible, because most of his movies are play in that realm in a way.
Right. That's great. And I'm now picturing you and him standing next to each other in a costume, and it must be like twins, I'm sure.
Yeah. I thought I was so jacked. I was like this little skinny but I thought it was so ripped. And I was like, I remember like trying to do push-ups and stuff. Like I wanted to be like Rambo. Rambo First Blood Part 2 was a really good movie. But I went a different path. But someday I still have this dream of producing a movie. And I'd write myself in like a scene with Stallone. He'll be an old guy by then, like a super old, but we'll be in a scene together. It'll happen.
It's going to happen. There you go. And I believe it. I know once you set your eyes to a mission, it will. You ended up on the oil rigs, you said. That had to be a pretty different experience. How did that happen, and what was it like?
Yeah, I remember being a super naive kid. The worst drug I probably saw growing up was we'd smoke a little bit of weed. That's about it. Like I don't even think there was access. I didn't know anyone who was doing anything else. Wasn't really around where I grew up. I'm sure it was, but the group of people that I was around, it was weed and mushrooms. It was that kind of stuff. And when I went on the rigs, I knew nothing about and I'm hoping I can go down this path. Let me know if not, but I knew nothing about like the dark side of like what human beings do, like escorts or that stuff. To me, it was like, that doesn't exist. I didn't even know. And I remember getting in my pickup truck. I got the job. I was working at Lordco, which is a parts store here in Canada for auto parts. And this new hire, this rip guy, drove up in a Corvette, and he started his first day at work. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, he's got a Corvette. It was yellow. I'm like, what's he doing working here? And I heard him on the phone. He was right next to me. We're selling parts. We were in the performance parts section. He's like, no, I'm not going back. I quit. Not interested, but thank you for everything. And he hung up, and I'm like, who is that? And he told me about the rigs. This is true story. This is literally how it happened. He's like, that it was Guy Custer was his name, but Guy, he's my tool push on the oil rigs. And I'm like, what is an oil rig? And then he kind of told me, and I was like, how much money did you make? And he's like, starting is about 120 a year. And I was like, could I do that job? And he says, yes. And I was like, call him. I will be there tomorrow. And he literally called him back, gave me the phone. This guy, he's this alcoholic tool push, like from a movie, this old, awesome dude, but rough. He was like, be here in like 2 days, go to Calgary, and we'll get you set up. And I went to the boss. I quit, got in my Chevy. I had a Chevy pickup, drove out to Calgary. They got me, I went to the head office. They got me certified, whatever I had to do, some H2S course. And I drove out on site. And I won't repeat the first thing I heard, but I literally like got out the truck, and this big greasy dude came up and just basically started yelling at me why I'm late, called me a few things, and gave me some coveralls. And I went to work, and I stayed for 4 or 5 years. I moved my way up to assistant driller, and it taught me by far work ethic, not complaining. It's minus 40 degrees or plus 40. You're still out there working. That nowadays, when I hear people complain about a 10-hour office job, I'm like, you have no idea. You have it pretty good.
Right. They just only have their own reality to compare against. I grew up with one of the good things I took from my father was his work ethic. And it sounds like he was not an immigrant, but in many ways like yours. And as I grew up, I went and I just started working, and I would work 90 and 100-hour weeks, and I wouldn't really think anything of it. People would look at me like I was nuts. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's just what you do. And now you hear very different perspectives, for sure.
Yeah. It's so easy. I'm just like, man, I am so grateful. Not only for like the thick forearms it'll build, and like I could fix anything and swing a hammer if I need to, or rebuild an engine, but it's beautiful having that skill while navigating the business world, because I look at a lot of people, not judging here, but I'll talk to people, and they just have no real world skills. And I love having both, at least for me. And I think it grounds you in a way too. Like it just grounds you to like what's actually real. I still love going in the forest and the trees and the smell of like that stuff to me is real. All of this stuff is amazing. I work hard for it. But if there was an apocalypse, or if the country shut down tomorrow, I'd grab my 30-06 and my 12 gauge, and I'd load it up, and I'd go set up camp in the bush, and I'd be kind of pumped about it. Like it'd be kind of cool. It'd be kind of cool.
That's and it's great that you have that. Some of my other guests have, I think, feel much the same way. I think of like Dan Zahner, Adventure Dan, as we call him. He was a guest earlier, and he follows you as well. And cool. His life's about adventure and about getting out there and being able to do things with your hands and all of that. They're skills that I've had a little bit of experience with, but I don't really possess, and I miss part of that. And I look forward to developing more of them as I go forward. I try to do any number of things to maintain the appreciation of my childhood, though, and recognize how temporary a lot of the rest of this is. Yeah. So how did you get out of the oil gig, and where did you go next? Is that when your entrepreneurial journey started?
Well, there was a mass amount of pain, and I literally just started sharing this story about a month ago, openly, publicly. Before that, it was all clients, and I literally just shared this with my sister. I think the first time she came over a week ago. But at the end of the oil rigs, I explained it as if I was seeing black and white. I didn't know how depressed and how upset, how angry, how emotionless I was. I remember even being in relationships, and I was like, just numb to life at the end. I was extremely unhappy. But I thought that's the way it is. It's all I knew. And when everyone around you is saying how successful you are, I just bought an apartment in Vancouver, which apparently is a big accomplishment for a 23-year-old, 24, whatever I was. I had 2 cars, both 0 down because banks were just giving me cash, of course. 2 motorcycles, both 0 down because banks were giving me credit. And so my monthly income of 10, 12 grand was basically just to cover mortgage, 5% down because the bank was happy to give me my loan. So much internal pressure, and I felt stuck. Like I need to continue this now. Like I have no other option, but I wanted to quit so bad and didn't know what to do. And that was probably about 6 months or a year. Every month I'd go back on my flight and I was telling everyone, I'm going to fucking quit. I hate my job. Excuse the cussing. I don't want to do this anymore. And I had no intrinsic, or I had no reason not to. And finally, when I bought my apartment, I probably the second or third day had no furniture. I had no friends because I was always working. So no one to celebrate the place with. And I was on the tail end of my prescription medication issue, mixed it with alcohol, and probably 2 or 3 in the morning. And I explain it now how like it felt like something was doing this for me, but I go to the closet, grab the 12 gauge, load it, and I'm pointing it at my head. And the whole time I wanted to end this thing. And the whole time I'm like, I don't want to, but it's like the body, whatever it was, is the weirdest experience, was telling me to do it. Luckily I didn't because I'm still here. Fell asleep, woke up the next day, and there was a book. Rarely read a book before this moment by not Dan Millman, but the other guy, Eckhart Tolle. One of his first books, Power of Now, maybe. And for whatever reason, I'm like, I need help. And I open up this book, and I believe, if this is the right book, the first chapter was about a very similar experience he faced. I think he maybe drugged himself or something and woke up the next day and decided to change his life forever. And I went for a walk in this little neighborhood, and it's like, it's going to sound so cheesy, but for the first time, I felt like gratitude for life, that I'm still here. And it's like I could feel the sun, I could feel the warmth, I could literally feel for the first time in my life. I think a traumatic experience like that shifted something inside me. And I just quit. Like I went back and I quit very quickly. The house, I had to sell it. The cars had to go, the bikes had to go. And I was so happy. Like I was just happier without all that stuff. So that was a big lesson for me early on. And that led into, I needed a routine to keep myself sane. So I really got into fitness at the time. Working out 2-3 times a week. People thought I was insane. And that obsession led to my first business, which was a lot of people reaching out to me to help, have me help them with their fitness. So I started doing that. I got certified. That led into a huge personal development, especially the Stoic philosophy at that time, just like book after book after book. And then I just became a sponge for absolutely everything. And within a year, I was working with quite a bit of clients. I was certified. I was helping people through their life journey. And it kind of started there, like the coaching realm and the information realm and the personal development stuff. And I've been obsessed for the last 8 years. I still read just as much as I did back then. So
it's like a switch flipped, man. And I applaud,
crazy.
I applaud your vulnerability for sharing. I've begun sharing a similar story recently myself, and it is, man, just kudos to you for putting that out there in the world. I think it's important, especially as successful leaders, that that message be shared, that story be shared, that there's something on the other side of that darkness.
And it's incredible. The more people I tell this story to, just like I did here, they say, I went through a very similar experience. And it's incredible. I don't know the stat yet, but I'd say almost everyone I share the story with, especially entrepreneurial, has come close in some way, multiple times, to doing, not just thinking about it, like taking the actions to doing it, if not having failed attempts. And it's, I think, more real and more real than many of us care to admit. And I had a hard time for years sharing this publicly because I was like, well, I'm exposing a weakness, or I'm using it for attention. So I still haven't like sent it to an email or done a video about it, but I've been more and more open to sharing it, and I'll keep getting more open to sharing it because I think there's a lot of people who are going through it, and we're kind of a crazy bunch. Like we're susceptible to this stuff. So
I appreciate it. It resonates with me so strongly. And recently I wrote a post that was the 10-year anniversary of my attempt. And I wrote it during the hour that 10 years earlier I was attempting. And it was just, it just felt like I had to share that. And I've for a long time owned that I've struggled with depression and anxiety. And as you say, so many leaders, so many entrepreneurs that I know do, but they stuff it down and bottle it away and feel like they can't show that weakness. But to lead in an authentic way, we have to not be ashamed of that. And we have to be willing to put that out there. And I think we unleash the power in so much stronger of a way when we do, and when we do it for the right reasons, to help, to share, to be open. So thank you for that.
I agree. Yeah.
As you jumped then into coaching, and you went full force into it. It sounds like the switch went from all the way the other way to all the way that. Oh, you're going to learn everything. You're going to coach everything. How did your dream and your vision of the future change as part of that?
That's a good question. I don't know if I even thought about it. I was just like, I just fell in love head over heels with anything growth, because I never, I can't say never, but I never took it seriously. I think I read some Dan Millman books way back in the day, like The Peaceful Warrior and stuff, trying to cope with, like, trying to figure it out. But after that moment, I went insane. Like, I was actually crazy. I didn't care what anyone thought anymore. Like, I shed this big part of, like, at the end of the day, I'm just lucky to be here, and it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. And I still try to live that philosophy of, like, just share your truth, and people will not like you, and that's okay. And I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't do my taxes for like 2 years. Later on, I found out if I charge money for things, I have to pay taxes. I didn't have insurance. I didn't have even a certification at first. I was just like, I want to serve. I want to help. And I fully committed to it. So I had to make money at the same time. So I was just learning how to hustle. And so I don't know if I had much of a dream or a vision for it. I thought I wanted a gym at one point. I'm like, well, maybe I'll build a big gym. And once I was full on clients, I was trying to hire someone. I was looking for space. I attended a workshop or a seminar thing with Bedros Keuilian, who's a great dude. And when I started talking to successful gym owners and just realizing how little they were taking home, like, these guys had $2 million a year gyms, but they were paying themselves $100,000 or less because the overhead was so high. I was like, okay, well, what about this online thing? And so I jumped heavily into that, and I started fitness coaching, health coaching, mindset coaching online. And there's more to the story, but simply said, that's what happened. And then I fell in love with online marketing, lead generation, building email lists. And I did that for a few years heavily. And then it led into what I do now.
Something that you mentioned is that you threw yourself into helping others and then also had to make some money. Many people that I speak with struggle to get comfortable with charging for the help that they offer. Was that a struggle for you, or was that pretty natural to say, hey, this is a fair trade, let's do it?
My back was against the wall. That's why I think I really like the idea of leveraging yourself so you have no out. So even if I have money in the bank, I very quickly reinvest it into something so it's not quickly accessible to me. So on paper, the balance is zero at the end of the month. So you have no option but to make it happen. I feel like, this is my philosophy, I feel like a lot of people, well, they got the bit of a backup plan and they got this and they got that. So maybe I'll work with a few clients for free at first and feel it out. But I guarantee you, if you lost your job and you could not go back to your old career and you had to make this happen, you would be charging, and you'd be charging very well for it, because you've got to make it happen for you too. So I was fortunate in a way that I had no marketable skills. I was an oil man. The best job I could probably get would be working at McDonald's. Like, I didn't have any university, no college, and not a very good high school record. So I had to make it happen. And so I was not apologetic for charging. I just made up the prices. Like, if I saw them roll up in a Porsche, I'd be like, it's $100 an hour. And if I saw them walk in and I could kind of quickly glance them over, $50 an hour. Like, it didn't matter. What can you afford? And let's do it. And of course, it wasn't the best way to do it, but I eventually had a system to it, and I finally set standard prices. At the end, I believe I was doing around $120, $140 an hour, which was unheard of. I remember being in the gym, and there was a guy with like 10 college degrees, and he's like coached professional hockey teams, and he was struggling to grow his business, and he was charging like $60 an hour. And and I could understand why he didn't like me. There's this arrogant 25-year-old with 8 months experience charging $100 an hour and full-on clients, and probably doing things sometimes wrong, but I could understand why he definitely did not like me. But it was a really good lesson in, like, just go for it, because it's not about the experience. We want both, of course, but it's not about the experience. It's not about the length of time.
It's about the impact, would you say?
About the impact, for sure. And I mean, I was open with it. Like, I had clients who are like, oh, what about this exercise? And I'm like, you know what? I don't know, but I'd go home and I'd study it all night, or I'd find the information. I'd come back with an answer. So it was just a great lesson that people aren't paying you for your degrees, your certifications, your whatever. And these clients stayed with me for a long time. Like, they were getting the results they wanted. They were, they weren't boxed into things. So it was a really great lesson that even how I explain it nowadays is like, your knowledge, if you're really naive, some of my best clients are 19 and they just got certified. And they're like, I'm an awesome coach. I read a Tony Robbins book and I read this book and I'm certified. And they go out of the gate swinging and they get high-end clients. And there's someone else who's been studying it for 5 years and who understands how little they know. Like, I always tell people, I study 2-3 hours a day, marketing, material, persuasion, influence, communication. And I know how little I know. Because I can study this stuff for 60 years and still there's more to learn. There's more books to read.
Yep. And
early on, they can play against you because you start feeling like an imposter maybe. And, well, I don't know everything. You'll never know everything. So go for it, create value. And as long as you create value for your clients, they will pay you what you ask and they'll stay with you for a long time.
It's not a complicated equation, right?
No, it's fairly simple, but, and there's, I get it. Like, there's confidence, there's this and that, but I'm really about creating leverage. I mean, Tony talks about this all the time, but create leverage. So you have to do it. So however you have to create leverage, burn the boats. I'm a really big believer in. I have people with kids and families who tell me, you don't understand. And I get that. I don't, but I've talked to, and a lot of my coaches and mentors have families and they put it all on the line over and over and over. They have more to lose than I do. And they still go after it in a big way. They put it all on the line. I know my dad did, and he had a family to take care of. And it will pay off if you're committed. So I really don't like that excuse, this and that.
That's a great message, I think, to share. What transitioned you out of the health industry, and how did you end up where you are now?
Yeah, so there's this one guy, I'm actually meeting with him tonight. Yoshko is his name. We're thinking about possibly doing a podcast together. He was one of my first clients. And he just reached out because he was a quote unquote competitor, I guess, here in Vancouver. And I don't want to butcher this story. I'm actually going to ask him today for the real story. But how I remember it is he was working at a gym behind the counter. And he had 1 or 2 clients, but he really wanted to be a trainer. He wanted to dominate Vancouver. He just reached out to me saying, hey, I see you all over social media. I was running like $4,000 or $5,000 ad spend locally, which was a lot for me back then. And I would be walking down the street and people were like, hey, you're that fitness guy. So I was building a lot of attention. I'd be on planes flying back from one time Vegas. And a guy was like, hey, you're the fitness guy. And he turned into a client. So I was killing it in Vancouver. And he reached out saying, I want to do what you do. And I was like, cool. Like, what, $500 a month? Like, I'll coach you for $500 a month. Like, whatever. And I remember him telling me, I believe he had like no money, but he did it anyway. And within just a few months, he was full with clients. We set up the campaigns for him. He was running his Facebook ads. I no longer work with him. I gave up my full one-on-one. We probably ended the relationship about a year and a half ago. We stayed really good friends. And I think he just hit like 40K a month. And he's literally, all the competitors in Vancouver are like shaking in their boots because this guy is everywhere online now. So I worked with him for a few months and he was getting incredible results. A few other people reached out and I realized I really, really love, because I have a pattern of starting something and then once it's successful-ish, I'm like, what's the next challenge? And I realized maybe I can just do that full-time and take on a new challenge all of the time with someone else's business and see where that grows and see how we can get creative. And I love it because there's so many different industries to get to tap into now and research a different industry. And I'm working with some guy right now where we're almost closing the deal. It's going to be a high-end one-on-one program, but he's doing high CEO executive stuff. He sold companies for like $10 million, $20 million. I know nothing about that world, but I'm excited to jump into it with him because I get to research that. I get to figure out that world. And to me, that's the game that I love.
That next horizon is for you, right?
It's really fun. Like, I get off on it, I guess. So
yeah, that's great. And then each time you make a change, you've added to the stable, you've added to your level of knowledge, you've helped a different group of people. I love that. I have clients across a lot of industries right now, and I love that I'm doing something different every day and with every person, and I'm learning so much more from them. As you've come along, what would you label as maybe one or two of the biggest lessons that you've learned? You've had quite a journey.
My most recent lesson, which was just this month, was for sure complacency. I forgot about that. Things were going really well, and I know I started not paying enough attention. I started trusting other people to do things. My finger wasn't on the pulse. I got a little bit of cocky. I was like, yeah, the good times will continue. And when momentum flipped, I was just like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening here. I lost control of everything. It was a really good reminder. Again, stoic type of philosophy of like, don't get your head too big when things are going well, and don't get down on yourself when things are going bad. And that was a really big lesson that I just learned again. And I think this time it was powerful enough for me to remember this forever. So that was a really big one. For sure. I mean, we could talk tactical, we could talk mindset, we could talk overall business.
Yeah, whatever connects with you. And I think what you shared is powerful. Complacency is a challenge, man. And in the end, it's what's the hardest thing to do is to overcome the momentum of zero. And when we get complacent, we end up sitting still, or we try to sit still, but we're sliding backward. And it is brutal.
I used to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, go to the gym, have my day planned out, and I started losing a little bit of that. And maybe it was needed. I needed a break for a few months, but it just feels good to be back in the saddle and just like on it. The way I work is different. It's mostly kind of looking at the big picture and making sure we're on track. But like I bought a BMW, like a brand new blacked out BMW 2 years ago, thinking I'm the man. And I just quickly sold it. And I'm just like, I don't even have a car nowadays. I just want simplicity. I barely own anything. I'm like, I really like the idea of simplicity, not too many complications in life, not having like all these things, all this stuff. And I definitely, when I started making money, I indulged in all that. But it was nice to just come full circle and just be like, hey, I've got one mission. I've got one goal. I've got one target. And let's just wake up every day and chase that, whether you're in a nice luxury apartment or you're in the basement, it doesn't matter. I get a lot of sense of joy of just chasing after the next challenge.
Speaking of that mission, goal, or target, what do you dream about now? Like, as you look forward over the next several years, where are you expecting Lucas to be?
So definitely changed, because my stuff was always branded under me. I was the center of attention. I was the main focus, and it's great. And you can make a lot of money doing that. But now it's team development. Like I'm so proud of Sarah, but where she's going and where she's heading to, for her to take over. She's a brilliant marketer, a lot of sales and marketing, and watch her shine and watch her be able to not have an income bracket, like just be able to make what she makes and however much she wants to make, and take part of that company, like part of that side of what we do, and watch her. She's an amazing coach too. She's a lot better at a lot of this stuff than I am. Like, if I'm completely honest, just watching her grow has been so rewarding to me. And so my future vision now is removing myself a little bit more from it, still being a massive part of it, of course, but watching her shine. We've been doing some workshops and getting back into performance coaching for not just coaches and not even entrepreneurs, but just people who want more out of life. I get a lot of satisfaction from that. So I've been taking some of my key lessons, the key things that I've learned, the things that really worked for me, turning it into not a book, but a manual, like everything that's real to me, and breaking it down into actionable lessons, actionable steps, things that people can try on. And I'm going to be starting an 8-week trial period right in the new year. We have a podcast centered around it, and that's kind of my next focus, and just having things run more so without me, which has been a lot of fun to create.
That's a pretty good vision to have, to make it to where it's helpful when you're there, but not necessary that you be, so that it can run.
Yeah. And just more impact. Like, I'm always like, I love getting emails. I love getting, maybe that's egotistic, but I just love getting emails of like, oh my God, your podcast helped me this much, or I just did this, or we had someone add another 10K a month to their coaching business just by binge watching the YouTube videos. That stuff gets me fired up. So I'm like, how can I reach more people? And I just I have fun with it. Of course, I don't really believe in competition, but at the same time, I like competition. So I have little pictures of like Tony Robbins, and I'm like, Tony, like, you're getting old. Like, move out the way because Rubik's is coming to take your spot. Like, I love that stuff. And if I could create something more massive than Robbins or more massive than the Bouchards, I'm just like, that's what I want. So let's do that. Let's reverse engineer and let's keep growing.
It's a great vision. As you work with so many entrepreneurs and coaches, and you're helping them, and even as you work in these bigger pictures, what do you see as a common characteristic that is maybe the most important thing that someone has to have if they're going to be successful?
It would be, well, there's a few, but I think I would sum it up around and it's such a maybe this is a cop-out answer, but like the grit or like the ability to get back up and do it again. The ones who take radical responsibility for absolutely everything succeed. So if I have a coach or someone who wants to work with us, and the first thing they do is blame the last program they were in, the program gets amazing results. If you blame a Tony Robbins program for not giving you results, I call bullshit on that, because there's thousands of people who did get results. Maybe you weren't at the right place in your life, but it's just, I know that you'll probably say the same thing about us. Like, that pattern will probably repeat itself because you're not taking full responsibility. So I think the people who are taking responsibility, who aren't blaming everyone around them, who aren't blaming their situation, and who just put their head down, apply it, do the work, they win. I don't know what adjective or verb sums that up. I kind of call it grit, but I guess probably a lot of different ways to say it.
Grit, resilience, all of that. I think that's pretty fair and a pretty common answer to this as well. So many times it seems that entrepreneurs or people who maybe begin the entrepreneurial journey start with so much energy and passion and starry eyes and maybe naivete and like, I've got this, it's all good. And they're not ready for that punch in the face that they're inevitably going to take.
I'm guilty for it too. I'll sometimes start a project and I'm like, this is gonna be awesome. And then it tails off and we never do launch it. So like, I get it. I feel for you, but if you're doing that 5 times out of 5, you will fail. I think everybody and all of us quit on projects and stop doing something. That's cool. But as long as your batting average or your ability to get up and keep going is on the right side of it, then you will eventually see success.
Do you think that's why you have succeeded at the level that you have?
Man, 100%. I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder because I am far from, there's different ways to use the word smart, but when it comes to education, none. Everything's self-taught. When it comes to, I get frustrated sometimes because my memory is horrible. I mix up words. I mix up when I'm writing or typing. Like, if you read my emails, if they're not proofread, if I send it, there's a mistake every 5th sentence. Half the time when I'm watching my videos, I say something that didn't make sense because I for some reason jumble up the words, and I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder of like, I honestly, I don't have anything more so than anyone else has, other than ability to get up and not be afraid to make a fool of myself. And yeah, so I do think that is the only reason why things always just work out.
That makes sense. You've talked about different books and things like that. Are there different specific resources that you would point people to, whether they're books or people or anything that have made it easier to chase your dreams, or that you think maybe would make it easier for others to chase theirs?
I always mention Robert Greene. Anything from Robert Greene made a really big impact in my life. I've read most of his books 3-4 times over. We had him on the podcast a few months ago, and I was just like, I was like a little kid. I don't care if it was.
That was your moment.
Stallone. Honestly, if I had Stallone on the podcast or Robert Greene, I had to choose which one. I love Stallone, but I would have chose Robert Greene. Like, to me, he's just like, he's made the most impact in my life. Stallone was a motivator, but Robert Greene he implemented things for me. So I would read and reread his books if you're okay getting out of your bubble and just seeing the world for what it really is, and how vindictive and how hard life fundamentally is. And I think just accepting that, it makes it a lot easier. So I really like his work. And anything, again, like just look up, I mean, what's that book called? The Obstacle is the Way, which is Ryan Holiday, who was apprentice for Robert Greene. He was his research apprentice. So he writes a lot about like the Stoic philosophies, and it's something that I've been really reintroduced to lately, which is why I talk about it a lot. And yeah, so they really, really made an impact on the way I view problems and obstacles and get up and persevere. And you know, one of the Stoic philosophies, big one, is just see the worst case scenario. Like, you know how everyone's trying to see the positive? Uh-huh. I very rarely do that. I'm like, okay, if I launch this and let me close my eyes, this happens, you know, I lose the place, the money, have to fire the entire team, have to go back to my buddy's couch and restart completely over with a laptop that, you know, the keys stopped working. So I have to actually trade in my MacBook for a little compact, and I have to eat fried beans for 1 year. Worst case scenario. And the second you accept that and you're just like, okay, that's the worst case. To me, it gives me so much. I'm like, if that's the worst case, Tim Ferriss does this, like make a list.
Yeah, right.
Of the worst case scenario. And then make the list of the best, and the best will far outweigh the worst. But you've got to look at the worst, I believe, to realize it's really not that bad. You will be okay.
I think it's a great practice to encourage. And the first time I heard that was from Tim Ferriss. I've practiced that some, not as much as I need to, but it's very freeing, I find, when you do that. When you look at it and realize that so many of the things that we worry about aren't ever going to happen, but even if they do, it's not as bad as our imagination creates. So if you stare it in the face and accept it, it's very freeing.
I was just like, I still have a bit of a tendency to get really anxious for anything public speaking. And it's been a while since I did it, and I got invited to speak fairly small stage. There might have been 100 people, not even. But I had so much anxiety before going up. And then I remembered, wait, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is I could go up there, I could pee my pants, and I could faint, and I'd have to get carried off. And in a week, no one would remember me, or I'd just be some weird guy that came up. And that instantly, when I thought that, when I imagined it, and the feelings that would come with it, it's like the anxiety instantly vanished, and I just had this free platform. And from all the feedback I got, was one of the better speakers, and I was just free to be in the moment. And so I do that a lot these days. It's like, what's the worst case? I can live with that. Let's go.
Man, I think if you're in the audience listening to this episode, you should pause, write down something you're afraid of, and do that exercise. Feel that freedom. That's very powerful. It's a great encouragement. As we think about the journey of your dreams, from a kid wanting to be an actor to now just looking for impact and just wanting to surpass Tony Robbins and everybody, you know, those minor things.
Screw that guy. Screw that guy.
Right? What does the idea that dreams are real mean to you?
I remember reading this question yesterday, and I was like, I'm not going to think about it too much because I want to see what I'm feeling here. Dreams are real. When I see a human being, and I mean this, I was just talking to some clients this morning in one of our group calls. Like, I literally see potential in people, and I don't make that up. That's not a marketing gimmick. That's not trying to fluff someone. I literally, when I actually look at someone and when they tell me what they want, my heart half breaks because I know they're not going full out for it. And every part of me believes in that, in the person, because my story is not, I don't live in the gutter or on the streets, but some of the guests I've had or some of the people I've connected with that have accomplished the most come from scenarios and situations far worse than almost all of us in daily life. Some situations we couldn't even imagine. They've gone on to sell billion-dollar companies, and they dumpster dove for food because they're hungry. And are some of those stories embellished? Possibly, but on a fundamental level, they come from a lot worse places than we came from. And I know that you could put a gun to my head and tell me, like, renounce that belief, and I would die for that belief. It's something that I fully believe in. And so your dream may not work out exactly how you want it to. Like, will I be a A-list actor? Probably not. If I wanted to get into racing, which was one of my dreams as an early kid, and I still love the sport and I do it for fun, but will I become a Formula One driver? Probably past my age to really, I'm too old. to compete at a high competitive level. Is there a small chance? Sure. But so your dream may morph and mold. I don't think it's fair to say that whatever you're dreaming of will come true, because chances are it won't, but it'll morph into something that's way better. Like, I love what I do. So dreams are real is 100%. I would die for that belief, because they are. And you can accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. It may morph, but go after it and you'll find your way.
That's powerful, man. I would die for the belief that dreams are real. And I'm right there with you. It's the whole purpose of this podcast. It's what I'm about is helping other people connect with that and inspiring generational change because of it.
And you know what the craziest thing is, though? Like, just to expand on that just a little bit, the craziest thing, and I think about this all the time in my own life. I got this from Stephen Covey, I believe. I don't know where I got this from, but I do this. I try to do it on a daily basis, especially when facing fear. But some people take this the wrong way, but like, you, Dan, or me are going to die. That's a definite thing. The only thing I know is you and I are going to die. I don't know much else. I don't know when you're going to die. I don't know what you're going to accomplish. I don't know if you're going to have 8 kids or 1 kid or 6 wives or 1 wife. But you're going to die in a very short period of time for the most part. Could be tomorrow. And what's crazier is in like 2 or 3 generations, like, no one will know who you were unless you become the president or you do something massive. You might have a plaque on a wall in some office. This is the founder of Walmart. Most likely no one's really going to emotionally connect or care about you that much. And I know for certain that in 1,000 years or in 10 generations, no one is going to know about you unless you change the course of history and you're in the history books. And we worry, me included sometimes, that's why I do this exercise, about the most trivial, retarded, stupid fears. And we hold ourselves back from our full potential. We hold ourselves back from taking the first step towards our dream because we have a mortgage. And I get it. I do get it. You've got a family to take care of. I get that. But where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm not saying drop everything and chase your dream and leave your family, because that's not very responsible. But there's a way to do it. And if you could just picture yourself, and I do this daily, how you're going to die. There's an exercise. What are 3 ways that I could die today? And I do this. Yesterday I had to jump on the motorcycle because I had to go somewhere, like a 30-minute ride. And I imagined myself getting smoked by a bus. Could happen. And like the pain that would come, me lying there bleeding out and everything going black because people don't get to me at times. I could die this way, and the elevator could snap and it's it. Or an earthquake happen and a window fall on my head. And I'm like, okay. And it just creates this urgency or this gratitude. And like, I am going to live this day full out. And at the end of the day, I ask myself, did I win the day or did I lose the day? And as long as I win 4 out of 5 days, if you're working 5 days a week, you're doing okay. And if you lose, why did you lose the day? Like, why'd you suck? Why didn't you do what you wanted to do? Why'd you slack on that? Don't beat yourself up, course correct, and win the next day. To me, it's just insane. And we don't chase our dreams because we're afraid of this and that, when like you're going to be in a casket and that casket's going to deteriorate and then bugs are going to eat your eyes.
That's very cheery, but it's real. And I think the first person that I heard share that was Gary Vaynerchuk. He there's a video of him sharing that message, and maybe not the exercise of the bugs eating their eyes, but
might be too far. But
right, it's true, but it's a great perspective shift, and that isn't in. It's all about mindset, right? It's understanding where we are. And when so many people, I think, I spoke with another guest about this recently, live for the future, but don't even live in the now. We've got to live, even if we're aiming at the future, we've got to live in the now. And that exercise, mentally at least, forces you to do that.
So cool.
With all the success that you have had that continues to grow, a lot of people look at you and say, man, that's an example of a guy who's doing it right. How do you feel when others use you as an example that dreams are real, that thing you would die for, that's true, and you're the example of why?
I feel really weird, as in I want to get like defensive, as in, well, I don't feel like I'm there, and that's just 100% honesty. But I can understand because it can motivate or it can inspire and just be like, I mean, I do have friends who I used to know being like, it's so amazing. So I get that. I mean, I'm 32-year-old man, and I have nights where I'm breaking down and I cry. Like, it can be a really tough game sometimes, and something's not working. You're frustrated. You want it so bad, and you have to let it go because it just didn't work, and that's not for you. So, yeah, I mean, cool. Learn from me. I definitely don't do everything right. If like, so funny. I don't know if I could share this. I will share it, but I entered a new relationship that is amazing. Like, in every single way, this relationship is what I've been looking for my entire life. But she kind of was checking stuff out and was like, "Oh, I kind of like put you on a pedestal of like, I thought you had life really figured out." And then we had this one argument, and she's like, "Man, that was a big mistake to put you on this pedestal. Like, I just thought that you're this, you have everything figured out. I definitely don't." Like we were talking earlier, I fail 95% of the time. I lose my emotional calm. I say things I shouldn't say. But I keep getting up and going after it. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty strong. As we begin to wrap up, we'll move into our Fortunate Five, the 5 questions we ask everyone. Your story has been so compelling. I'm excited to hear about the adventure and fortune facing you.
Sure.
So question 1, what is the most exciting or adventurous thing that you've ever done?
So a few years ago, I took off from Vancouver, Canada to Panama City on a dirt bike for 6 months. And we tented the whole way down to Panama. And we spent 6 months on the road. There was a few stops for like a month here and there. And I had an audio, I had headphones, and I listened to pretty much every marketing book and every business book that's available. I spent 30,000 kilometers on the road, going through a few sets of tires, just listening for 8 hours a day to these. And I got a PH triple D in persuasion, sales, marketing, because that's all I listened to. So it was very awesome. I also learned that living on a beach is not my purpose. I need to be in the trenches. I love to work. So at the end, I was also very looking forward to getting back to work and going after it. So, but it was definitely exciting and adventurous. Some cool stories from that.
Any one particular story that jumps out at you? That sounds such an amazing experience.
There's a lot. There was one where I got so sick. We were tenting. It's kind of a gross story, so hopefully you're not eating food right now, but I got so sick. I ate something. I don't know what happened. And we were tenting. There was like no bathrooms. And I think I spent 3 or 4 days, and we were tenting off the grid, like 3 or 4 days, puking and pooping water, for like 3 or 4 days. I thought I was going to die. I had like cold sweats, and it was pretty funny. I don't know, a lot of close calls. Some of these roads in like the Honduras are so twisty and narrow that you're coming around the corner and there's a semi just taking over the whole road, and you have no option but to. I think their idea of life, or their value on life, is so much less than we have. For whatever reason, they like. I mean, there's stories of you can get killed for $100 down there, but stories of like people running off the road and like 3 people die and no one really cares. They're like, okay, it's just a way of life. Whereas here it's like, oh my God, like it's just, they die, and they die all the time, and it's not a really big deal. And so that was a little crazy.
That's a pretty complete perspective shift.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we're glad that from all of those, we're glad you didn't get killed for $100. We're glad that you survived the sickness and that you made it through your journey to come back and help us. You're a learner, and it seems like you've become an aggressive, now lifelong learner. What is something that you wish you were good at but aren't yet?
So I picked up music again. I used to play guitar, not professionally or not great. And so on the 7th is my first concert. I've been taking vocal lessons, voice lessons aggressively, and I've been playing an hour of guitar every day. And I have my first ever on stage performance. Not wanting to make it big, but I've had so much fun coming over fears of sharing vulnerability through music. So I've got a nice little song set on the 7th. Please, nobody come, because it's going to be horrible, but it's going to be so fun. That's on the 7th or the 8th or something. So I've been pursuing that. I'm not great yet, but give me a year or two, and I'd like to like record a little album. I think that'd be fun.
Congratulations, man. That's phenomenal. So many of I work with creatives primarily. So many of my clients are musicians. I'm sure they'll hear that and their hearts are going to be with you, man. They'll be cheering you on.
I love it. Yeah.
What is the best meal or food experience that you've ever had?
My girlfriend just asked me this because she's like, where would you love to eat? And if anyone knows me, they know that I eat for energy. I eat some pretty gross stuff. Yesterday I had like a leftover coffee. So I poured it into the blender and I put some fruit in it, frozen fruit. And then I put some protein powder, some water, and it was disgusting, but I don't know. I don't think I have very refined taste buds. So I don't really I've been to fine dining and I could care less. Like I honestly don't have a meal that I love. I don't have a type of food that I love to eat. And I'm not saying that. And
no memorable experience that's connected to it either. It's just not your thing.
I don't. Like I don't really value. I'm not a foodie.
I think I'm the opposite of that. I like food about 10 times more than I should, and I love experiences surrounding it.
She asked me that, and I was like, she had all these things and all these foods, and she wanted to try in places, and I was like, I'm good with the bars. Beef burger, give me a salad instead of fries, and I'm really good with that.
Keep it simple and you're in. What is a dream travel destination for you? Where's somewhere that you haven't been that you'd love to go?
Italy. I want to go back. I've never been back to Italy. Next year is happening. There's 2 opportunities. One opportunity, everything, I'll make money doing it, and one opportunity, I'll spend money doing it. It doesn't matter to me, but next year I'll do it. Want to go to Rome. I want to rent a sports car and just take the coast down. And I love cars. So like if I could get my hands on a Ferrari for a week and drive the Italian way through the country, I would, that's like my dream.
Now, remembering your youth and cars and driving a little fast, are you going to tone that back, or are you going to be all in?
I'm much more responsible. I pick and choose. I still am really into motorcycles as well. So I stunt motorcycles on the weekends. But I try to keep it on the stunt lots or on the racetrack. Sometimes on the highway, if it's empty, like I'll pop a wheelie and hold it for a few minutes. Like I still do that stuff, but I make sure I'm not endangering someone else's life like I used to. So I'll open it up. I'll get some good insurance in case I hit the wall, but I will be respectful of people.
That's good. So you wait until you're out there on your own, and then it's going to happen. Then it gets real.
That's right. You got to open it up a little bit. I love cars and motorcycles to this day. So.
Do you have a dream car? If you could drive one car, or not so much?
I don't. It flips and switches so much, and then there's a part of me that like looks. Sometimes I'll look. It used to motivate me a lot more. Like I wanted the Huracans, I wanted the Ferraris, I wanted all that, and it used to motivate me. Nowadays, I get excited by the idea of having a garage full of cars, but I honestly think now they would just be like trophies of remembering like all the shit it took to get it. But it doesn't motivate me as much as it used to. I have 2 motorcycles that are both my dream bikes, and I'm happy with that. So
looking forward to hearing stories of your journey through Italy, and hopefully not police reports, just stories of good and fun. We'll see. What do you hope or believe will be the most exciting invention of the next 30 years?
Yeah, I thought about this yesterday because I did read this, and I'm like, I don't know, but I'm really excited for anything to do with like the future of cars, flight, like space travel. Maybe we'll have things where we can get into. I love machines, and I like flying and controlling things. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Like what kind of horsepower and what kind of energy are we going to be able to displace or get out of super small displacement engines and motors and electric and different energy sources, and how fast are we going to be able to go? Are we all going to be flying? Are we going to be able to enter space for like a super low cost to be able to explore that stuff? So that kind of excites me. And there's a part of me that is afraid of it, but technology, like I'm really looking forward, also scared to see where that goes, and trying to just stay aware of what's happening. So I don't know, that kind of stuff interests me.
More automation and something to make you go even faster.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. I do like speed. I have this problem. I still to this day. Um, I'm just a little speed
You
demon.
like speed of business, you like speed of person, you like speed of vehicle. I get that. Motion
Yeah,
matters, right?
maybe.
Is there a certain thought or message that you'd like to leave with our audience?
Yeah, I've been saying this one a lot lately because I get more and more emails or DMs being like, I don't want to like fluff my own ego, but like what you're doing is amazing, or I wish, and I'm just like a constant reminder because I used to say that when I looked at these people, and I'm far from the Elon Musk or like whatever Richard Branson, because we look at those people and we're like, I wish that, and what we don't realize is they've been doing it 20, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. B, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're perfect. Like there's nothing wrong with you. I share that message a lot. Like there's actually nothing wrong with you. There's things you can improve, but don't be looking at everyone else thinking something's wrong with you. And like put your head down, get clear on what it is you want, and use those sources, me, Dan, and anyone else as inspiration, but understand that like I wake up in the morning in boxers with my hair messy and I go pee and then I go to the bathroom, and so is everyone else, and everyone is going through their own mental journey, and we are all literally thinking and going through the day-to-day. We're all equal. No one's better than you and no one's more whatever. They just put in more time. And if you can keep putting in the time, you will be celebrated, and you'll wonder why people are celebrating you because you've just put in more time than the other guy. So I used to get star a little bit like whoa, like I'm talking to this person on the podcast, and now I am just like, they probably just went to the bathroom. Hopefully they washed their hands, and let's just talk because you're just a human being like me. I respect what you've accomplished because you've put in more time than me, but you're no better than me, and I'm no better than anyone else.
Great message. How can our audience find you? What are you working on that they should know about? But where can they connect?
Yeah, I'm really, really obsessed with the YouTube channel right now. Like I'm loving video, and I have so many ideas to grow in different ways. But all of our links are shared just on the website, lucasrubix.com. You'll find the podcast, you'll find the YouTube channel. But a lot of my focus is on YouTube. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And right now we're doing 3 videos a week, and we're building a lot of traction on YouTube. But I'm thinking it might get to the point where we're doing 2 videos a day. I might even have to get someone just responsible for managing the YouTube channel. But I've been having a lot of fun sharing value and different philosophies on that. And everything's just Lucas Rubix.
Easy enough, easy to find you, and a lot of value for those of you who have not yet followed Lucas. Get out there, get it done. The information that he drops is connecting, it's vibrant, and it's valuable. He is a mindset he is a mindset coach. He is a performance coach. He is a marketing coach, and overall he's just a good guy. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for joining us on the Dreams Are Real podcast. If anything we've said has inspired you to dream bigger, live more boldly, or move closer to your ideal life, please reach out and let us know, and also be sure to share this episode with a friend. We would be honored if you would like, subscribe, and leave a review for our show on your favorite podcasting platform. And for more discussion of this episode and all things related to the Dreams Are Real podcast, and to receive your free download of Dan's Defining Your North Star training, please join our Dreams Are Real community on Facebook. Until next time, be amazing and keep crushing it.